For our example of a canapé type of cold sandwich, we're going to make bruschetta. And for that, we'll need tomatoes, cucumber, green onions, some fresh basil, fresh cilantro, and fresh parsley. We also need some olive oil, lime juice, salt, a little bit of pepper, some shredded Parmesan cheese, and we'll need a baguette of French bread, some olive oil, and a little bit of Italian herb seasoning. We're going to do a lot of chopping. We need a bread knife to slice the baguette. We need a chef's knife for our tomatoes and other vegetables and our herbs. We're going to need a bench scraper that's handy to move things that have been chopped. We'll want a paring knife. We need a mixing bowl, a rubber scraper, a pastry brush to brush the oil, a custard cup to hold the oil. And I have a baking pan lined with parchment paper for putting the bread slices on to toast them in the oven. So let's get started on the main part of the bruschetta. So the first thing we're going to do is to take our tomatoes, and we are going to small dice those. So I'm going to cut the tops. I want several slices, about 1/4 inch wide. Again, we'll put those face down. We'll put those face down, and then again, tomatoes get a little bit easier to cut when we turn them over, so we're not cutting that skin. Or you could use a serrated knife. That's great for tomatoes. So with that serrated knife, goes through our tomato skins a lot more easily. Remember to keep your guiding hand fingers tucked under so you're not getting cut. Once we're finished with our tomatoes, we're ready to start our cucumbers. We just need half of a cucumber. And we're going to peel that just with the paring knife. And you want to keep the knife as close to the skin as possible. If you're not comfortable holding it like I am, you can set it down on the cutting board and run the knife towards the cutting board. The paring knife is good for removing the peel because it gives you a lot of control. All right, so most of the skin off, and now we're going to small dice our cucumber. So we're going to use our chef's knife and cut it into 4 or 5 slices that are each about 1/4 inch wide. Then I've got that nice flat surface to work from. So then I'm going to cut 1/4 inch columns. And if it's too slippery for you to work with stacked, you can work with these one at a time. And then we're going to go down 1/4 inch, keeping the fingers on our guiding hand tucked under. So we'll finish up our cucumber, and then we'll go to the next ingredient. So the recipe calls for 2 green onions, but these are fairly small. So I'm going to go ahead and use 4. And remember, the majority of the flavor in a green onion comes from that white part right by the root. So I'm going to line those up, and I'm going to cut off just as little bit as I can of that hairy root. If there are any outer layers, we'll take those off. And then then we'll line them all up. And this we just need sliced, and we're going to go all the way into the green top a little bit. So not more than 1/4 of an inch. We want that color from that green onion. It does give some flavor, the green top, but it also gives a lot of color. So just the last couple of inches we're going to skip. And remove the green onion into our bowl. And now we're ready for the herbs. So I need about 1.5 teaspoons of fresh basil. So I'm just going to take a couple of stems off my basil. And we only want the leaves. We don't want the stems. I'm going to bring those together, and then just some fine slices. Don't want to over cut. One more this direction. So there's my basil. Now I also need 1.5 teaspoons of cilantro and parsley. Cilantro is a flat leaf, sometimes referred to as Mexican parsley. Again, we're just going to take some of those stems, a few stems. We're going to take the leaves off and use just the leaves. I'll bring those together again. And just run the knife across one direction. And then another. Just to make sure we have nice small pieces of our cilantro. And then a few stems of regular parsley. Again, we just want those upper leaves. So there's our tomatoes, cucumbers, green onions, basil, cilantro, parsley. Now to this, we're going to add our olive oil, lime juice, and our salt and pepper. So I need about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in this bowl. So I'm going to measure that over a custard cup. Till it bubbles at the edge. Add that. 1, 2 in the bowl. And now I need about 1/4 cup more. I'm just going to estimate this. This is for my bread. 2, 3, 4 tablespoons and 1/4 cup. We're going to use that to brush on the baguette in a little bit. And then we need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Kind of spread that everywhere. So to finish off our bruschetta, I'm going to get it ready to plate. And remember, this is our canapé example. So we're going to put some of those toasted baguette pieces on our serving plate. And we've got our tomato cucumber mixture that has had the chance to marinate overnight. And I've got a slotted spoon because I don't really want a lot of the liquid. And then I'm just going to place a little bit of that vegetable mixture on each toasted bread. Kind of drain the liquid off as I move it to the bread. Just a little bit, because this is just like a 1, maybe 2 bite little item. So we don't want to have it piled too high, but we want a decent amount. And then we're going to take that Parmesan cheese and just put a little bit on top of each of our bruschetta toasts. So there we have it. Our bruschetta is ready to serve. So finger sandwiches can be savory or they can be sweet. And we're going to make one of each for the cold sandwich demo. And the sweet one is a chocolate raspberry tea sandwich. To make our chocolate raspberry tea sandwiches, we'll need a pound cake that you can pick up in your freezer at the grocery store. We need semi-sweet chocolate chips, cream cheese, honey, and raspberries. And I'm choosing to use frozen raspberries that you just need to make sure are thawed. So to make our chocolate raspberry tea sandwiches, I've taken my semi-sweet chocolate chips and I've microwaved them for about 2 minutes. And now I'm just going to stir them until they're smooth. And then I'll set that aside. Also, I've already taken the opportunity to create the other part of the filling for the sandwich with the raspberries. And I put the raspberries, the honey, and the cream cheese in the food processor. And I processed that until it was smooth. So we're gonna let the chocolate set over to the side and cool down just a little. We're gonna move our raspberry mixture off of our cutting board. And now we're gonna take our pound cake and we want to cut off just the very edge, the very outer brown. We're gonna leave as much of the golden cake there as we can. We're just gonna take off this outer portion. Which is just kind of like the crust of the cake. I'm gonna do that on the sides as well. Notice my serrated knife so that I don't have to smash the bread to get the cut that I want. We want to leave as much of it here as we can. I'm more side. And again, this is just found in the freezer case. These are really super simple. So now we're going to take our pound cake and we are going to slice it into 1/4 inch slices. So nice and thin, all the way down the cake. Then we're going to take all those slices, we're going to lay them out on a baking sheet, on a baking pan. Not because we're going to bake them, but because this should hold most, if not all, of our slices to get ready for the next step. Because we're going to take one side of each slice and coat it with chocolate. So if we line them all up, that'll make it a slightly easier task when we're doing that. And the pan fits 3 across just beautifully. It's gonna be really close. I don't think we're gonna quite make it. So we're gonna need another pan. But what we're going to do is take that chocolate and just with our rubber scraper, brush a thin layer of chocolate on every piece of cake. And then we're going to set that aside to chill. So just a thin layer of chocolate on every piece of cake, coating the entire piece of bread, cake with the chocolate, just one side. And we're going to let that chill before we go on to the next step. So we'll put the pans in the refrigerator. Now we'll assemble our sweet finger sandwich. So the chocolate has chilled on each of my pound cake slices on just one side. So I'm going to take my raspberry cream cheese mixture and I'm going to put that on half of the slices. And then we'll take those chocolate slices and put another one on top. And then we want to cut these into 1 inch wide fingers. And then we're going to turn those on their side so that you can see all the colors of the finger sandwich. So there's our sweet chocolate raspberry finger sandwiches ready to serve. To make our creamy chicken sandwiches, which will be finger sandwiches, we'll need 1½ cups of chopped cooked chicken, a package of cream cheese. You could use Naftel, which is a lighter cream cheese and sometimes branded as light cream cheese when you purchase it in the store. But we're going to use regular cream cheese. We'll need celery, mayonnaise, some chopped onion as well as some onion powder, salt, and regular white sandwich bread. In order to make this, the equipment we're going to need is a cutting board, a knife, and a food processor. We're also going to need to measure our mayonnaise, as well as measuring spoons for the onion powder and salt, and a straight edge spatula to make those accurate measurements. And then if you have it for the mayonnaise, a Wonder Cup is a great way to measure that semi-solid ingredient. So to make our creamy chicken sandwiches, we're going to make a creamy chicken salad. And we're going to start by, I've washed off some celery, and I'm going to trim that up a little. So I'm trimming the bottom off and the top. If you want to be a little more accurate, you can measure this as you chop. But I've taken two short stalks, and I'm just going to kind of rough chop them a little, just a few cuts. We're going to put that in the food processor. And we need about 1.5 cups of cubed chopped chicken. So we're going to take this chicken that we baked and chilled ahead of time, and just cut it into some larger chunks, just to make it process well in the food processor. And then I need about 2 tablespoons of onion. So I'm going to take my onion, and again, I'm just going to kind of, this is a small piece, chop that a little so it chops up well in the food processor. And then we're going to take our onion powder, and we're going to measure a teaspoon. I'm going to heat that up over. And then using my straight edge spatula, level it off back into the container. Sprinkle that around. And then I also need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So again, we're gonna scoop that up, level it off, sprinkle that around. And then, so we have our chicken. We need to add our cream cheese. And then we need an 8-ounce package. That's an entire block of cream cheese for this recipe. And I do want to place this in several spots. So I'm just going to kind of cut the chunks up. So I want this to end up all around the food processor. When it starts out. And I want to make sure I get all the cream cheese in there, so I'm going to scrape the wrapper to help ensure it all gets in the recipe. And then I need to add my 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. Scrape that off. Make sure it all gets in there. And then we're going to take that processor lid slightly to the left of center, line it up, everything's in place, and we're going to turn it on. I'm going to stop this a minute, push the top to the left. Notice it's really creamy at the bottom, but we've still got some chicken and cream cheese that have not been blended in well yet. So we're just going to use that specialty scraper for the Cuisinart. Mix that around a little. Back on. Now you can see it's really starting to get going. It's moving stuff around. It's pulling it down towards the blade and pushing up the parts that are already pretty well blended. We'll probably stir this one more time before we move it out of here. But this is just going to be a totally smooth, creamy chicken salad that's going to go on our finger sandwiches. We're going to take one more time to go through. There are still a few things that are chunky. There's still, when we look in here, when we stir, we see some cream cheese that hasn't been blended in well. A few pieces of celery that haven't quite, and a few pieces of chicken that haven't quite gotten to the point that we want them. And remember, use that special scraper that comes with the food processor because it's not going to get harmed by the blades. So one more round. Nice and free-flowing is a good sign. Again, before we start moving it out of here, we just want to check. Want to make sure we don't see any more, run into any more large chunks of chicken or unblended cream cheese. There's still a few large pieces of chicken in here. So I am going to go one more go at the on button. And then we'll move it to the bowl and refrigerate it. So we do need this to be completely creamy to work properly in our finger sandwiches. So just kind of check this as we bring it out. Make sure the parts we're moving out of here are all smooth. There's a little bit, I think, this still needs to be blended some more. So with that a little bit out, we're going to try this again. Check that consistency again as we move it to the bowl. So this creamy chicken salad needs to refrigerate for about 6 hours or overnight before we put it on the bread to finish making it into finger sandwiches. So I'm just going to put this in the bowl, wrap it up, and start chilling it for that 6 hours or overnight. To finish up with our creamy chicken salad finger sandwiches, this is our savory finger sandwich. We're going to take just some plain white bread, a little stack, and we're going to use our serrated knife to cut off the crusts. And you can use those for a different recipe, make breadcrumbs, feed them to your favorite dog. So just going to cut the crust off all 4 sides. Leaving as much bread as possible. So adjust the crust as best we can. And then on 2 of those, we're going to spread chicken salad. So you can see it got a lot firmer in the refrigerator, so you want to make sure you don't tear up the bread. And I do have an icing spreader, a tiny spatula, but you could use a butter knife if you didn't have a spatula like this available. I like this because it's a little more flexible, so it gives a little more control. So there's one. And you do want to try to go edge to edge with your chicken salad, but you have to be careful because you do not want to tear that bread. And just like I would with with icing, I always take the spatula off of the chicken salad at an angle. That helps to not tear the bread. All right, so then with our chicken salad edge to edge, we're going to take the other pieces and press those lightly so that it stays together. Okay, press those lightly. And then with our serrated knife again, we're going to cut this so that it's about 1.5 inches wide. So for this particular bread, that works out to about 3 columns per slice. So I'm going to just cut this one into thirds. And there we have our savory, creamy chicken salad finger sandwiches. And really, you could use any bread you wanted for this. Whatever your favorite is with chicken salad would be a good matchup. So here's our creamy chicken salad finger sandwiches ready to serve. We're ready to assemble our club sandwich, and it is a turkey bacon club. And one of the things that defines a club sandwich is 3 pieces of toasted bread. So we have just plain white bread that's been toasted, and on 2 of those pieces we're going to put some mayonnaise, and we just need a butter knife for that task. If you don't care for mayonnaise, you could use a different kind of spread. But basically we want a moisture barrier so the bread doesn't get too soggy from the other ingredients. And then we're going to take these 2 pieces and we're going to assemble them in a very similar manner. So for each of these pieces of mayonnaise covered bread, we're going to put 2 tomatoes. And that one's kind of a half a tomato, but it'll do. Okay, so 2 tomatoes, lettuce, and then we're gonna neatly arrange about 1.5 ounces of turkey on each of these slices. So For the turkey that we have, that's going to be 3 or 4 slices of turkey on each side. Go ahead and make that 4. And then each of these is going to get some bacon. So now we're going to put 2 pieces of bacon on each. You can break those up if you want, so that you get a little better coverage across the sandwich. And now that we have all of the pieces of our sandwich put on there, we're going to take one of these and put it on top of the other. And then lastly, we're going to take each of our last pieces of bread. So there's our club sandwich. Now, because this is so tall, when we cut it, we don't want it to fall apart. So we're going to put a long, colorful toothpick in each corner, or sorry, in each center. Put my toothpicks in the wrong spot. But a long, colorful toothpick in each center. One more toothpick. They ran away from me. And we choose colorful toothpicks so that they're easily noticed and they're not missed and they don't cause a physical contaminant. So then we're going to take that serrated knife again, and we're going to cut the bread diagonally twice. There's once. Make sure you keep your fingers out of the way. We do want to kind of hold it together as we cut. And then we're ready to serve our club sandwich. So there we go. That's now a club sandwich is an example of a closed sandwich. So there we have our closed sandwich club. Remember, 3 pieces of toasted bread helps define that it's a club sandwich. And it's all ready to enjoy. So probably our most intricate sandwich in this group of sandwiches is our rolled sandwich. And then we're going to do a wrap. And we have a spicy chicken wrap. So we have the pico that we assembled a day before, so it'd have plenty of time to have the flavors blend. We have the chicken that we cooked in a grill pan, or you could use a skillet or a grill if it's the right time of year. And that's had time to cool then overnight. I've also taken a can of black beans and put it through a food processor. So it's nice and smooth. I've shredded some fresh Monterey Jack cheese and chiffonaded some romaine lettuce. So now we're all ready to assemble our wrap. So we're going to take our black beans, and this is going to help hold everything in place. So we're just going to do a smear of it around the whole tortilla, but we're not going to the edge. Okay, we want this to be able to wrap up well. So we're going to leave about 1 inch clean on the edge of the tortilla all the way around. About 1 inch. So one of the things I find the most difficult about wraps is finding that perfect balance between having enough filling and overstuffing it. So our goal is to get it just right. So now we're going to take some of our pico. I have a slotted spoon so I can drain it as I take it out. And I'm going to put that down the center. Just a little more on the end here. And I don't want anything to go past my black beans. So everything else I'm going to put down this center line. So I've got my chicken. We want to make sure that fills our tortilla, our wrap nicely. So there's our chicken. And then we need our cheese. And our lettuce. And now that we have all that there, we're going to take and we're going to fold the ends in. And then we're going to fold this side over to the top. And then our goal is to tightly roll that to the other side without ripping the tortilla. Okay. So we've got that all nice and put together. And now to help it stay together, we're going to put a couple of toothpicks. Again, those frilled toothpicks, so that you can, whoever you're serving the sandwich to, sees them easily. They don't get lost, even if it's your own sandwich. This way it won't get lost as the second half waits for you to enjoy. So we're going to cut this on a bias, which means a diagonal line. It's just a little bit more aesthetic. It's more pretty. It's more pleasing. It's prettier. And then here's our spicy chicken wrap. All ready to serve. You could add avocado to this if you like avocado. They can get a little expensive, so I didn't put it in automatically. Not everybody appreciates them as well, but there's a lot of flavor in this wrap. Something great to enjoy. To make our egg salad, one of the hardest things probably is peeling the eggs. So make sure that you roll them all around to get a good crack all over, and make sure you rinse them off before you cut them. Now, the nice thing about egg salad with a hard cooked egg is that it's very forgiving. So if, like this egg, you had trouble peeling it, we're going to do a double cut with the egg slicer. Turn it 90 degrees. If you don't have an egg slicer, you could just use a butter knife to chop up your egg. I'm just going to chop it into dices, basically. Okay. There's our eggs. And to this, we're going to add about 3/4 cup of mayonnaise. A teaspoon of prepared mustard. And I have the salt, pepper, and dill all mixed together. And we're just going to mix this together. And then we want to give it about an hour, 2 hours, or even overnight in the refrigerator for those flavors to blend. We used that egg timer to cook the eggs. It's a specialty tool. It sits in the bottom of the pan with the eggs. It starts out right away with them in there. And the color changes as the eggs cook. And so it helps us get this perfectly yellow yolk with none of that gray-green ring that tells us it was overcooked. So here's our beautiful bright yellow egg salad. So we're just gonna let that sit overnight in the refrigerator so the flavors can blend, and then we'll be ready to put it on our sandwich. Now that our egg salad has had time to marinate, it's ready to plate. So we're just gonna serve this as a little open face sandwich. But we're gonna do it on a small scale. So we're gonna use these little cocktail rye breads. You could, if you didn't like rye bread, you could cut up a baguette, as we did for the bruschetta. You could even cut squares out of white bread or serve it larger on white bread. So I've got a spoon to kind of help me keep it looking a little bit nicer as I serve it. We don't want it to be too large, too tall a pile of egg salad, just because we're going to make this just a 2 to 3 bite little sandwich item. Just get those ready. And then for just a little accent, we're going to add a hint of dill. If you had fresh dill, a little sprig of fresh dill on the top of each of these would be awesome. But we're just going to sprinkle them with each one with a little extra dried dill. Adds a nice color contrast, and it goes with the flavor really well. So now we have our egg salad ready to serve. Our open-faced egg salad sandwiches ready to serve. So here we have all of our examples of cold sandwiches: canapes, savory finger sandwiches, club sandwiches, rolled sandwiches, open-faced sandwiches, and lastly, a sweet finger sandwich. There's so much variety in the world of sandwiches. I encourage you to try the many combinations of flavors that are out there in these basic combinations of cold sandwiches.